Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SA Accounting Academy. Here's a short clip on one of our previous webinars. I hope that you really do enjoy it.
I hope that you're well. I hope that you are safe and you've got good weather wherever you may be. You haven't been washed away or you're not doing too wet. You've got some sunshine. And if you've got sunshine, I hope it's not too hot. We can't seem to ever be happy in South Africa at the moment. We're one or two of the, we're working in both directions. So we are... No, I'm glad that everybody's doing well. I'd also be very interested in the comment box where you are at with GRAP. This is a introduction. This is a getting to grips with it, understanding. So I come at it with an idea that you are, besides for SARS, you well. You know what? Those four-letter institutes between SIPSI, SARS, URBA. They are there to make our lives interesting. What would we do? We would be bored without them. So this is actually the third year that I've actually done the session. So it's getting to be familiar. Last year, and it's actually a part of the recordings. I'm sure you can contact SAAA if you're interested. Bronwyn McCullen and myself did a 10-part series, which was... I actually have a sinus and ear infection, so it's that's actually why I sound like I do. So I've got the husky voice. What I was going to say is that we did a 10-part public sector series last year, where we went right from the Constitution all the way through to the Auditor General, and it was really fascinating to actually look at the public sector and look at how well our laws and regulations are written for the public sector, and what we expect of civil servants and what we expect of the institutes and of the departments and levels of government to do when it comes to finance and financial discipline. We really do have brilliant laws and brilliant expectations of local government and provincial government and national government. The challenge is always in the implementation and getting people to do what they need to do. Okay, so it was quite an interesting series. There were 10 2-hour sessions in it, and one of those series we got into a little bit of GRAP, but we were talking about internal controls, performance reporting, all sorts of other things when it comes to public sector. So if you are interested or wanting to find out more, that is a course that is in the library of SAAA, if you're ever interested. Okay, but today we are going to be looking at the actual an introduction or getting an understanding of GRAP and what GRAP is. GRAP is obviously as big as IFRS. Okay, so there's no ways I could teach it in 2 hours. It is just as interesting and complicated and nuanced as IFRS. It has a few... it's not quite as systematic as IFRS because it kind of borrows from here and borrows from there, and you need to do this if you're here and you do that if you're there. So there's a lot of moving parts. So today's session is really to get you into it, to get you to think about it, and to get you familiar with the way and the philosophy of GRAP. Okay, because I am somebody who has spent my entire career in the private sector, and when I started working with Bronwyn over the last couple of years, her base background is that she came from the Auditor General, and it's been interesting for the two of us to work together and share knowledge. She's more auditing based around public-private work. Okay, so today we're going to talk about introduction to GRAP. We're going to look at that comparison as to why the two accounting frameworks are different. So this is sort of IFRS for SMEs as accounting framework, IFRS is an accounting framework, and GRAP is an accounting framework. They are 3 different sets of principles and rules, okay, for taking source data, source information, and filtering it and summarizing it and applying principles to in order to report on. Okay. We're then going to look at some specific issues which are pretty relevant to the space. I think next year I'd like to, just because of a couple of issues that have come up in the last short bit, I'd like to maybe look at assets in a bit more detail when we run the session. But we are going to look at the treatment of assets to begin with. But there's specific differences and specific different ways of dealing with these particular ideas. And it really is because of the purpose of the sector, okay? Why we even have different reporting requirements for these, okay? So the specific standards that we'll also be looking at are, presentation and cash flows and policies. And from this, it's kind of like me taking you to Paris and saying to you, this is the Seine River, there's the Eiffel Tower, here's the Arc de Triomphe, here's the Champs-Élysées. Here are the key points that you need to be aware of when you're communicating or talking about to somebody with GRAP. This is sort of like the introductory tourist version of GRAP. And we could literally spend a session, per GRAP standard and work with it going forward, just like we could with IFRS. Okay. So this is definitely just as a expectation gap management issue. This is a broad strokes session, okay, to paint the overall picture, and we can always later, if there's demand, look at the more in-depth session. I have a dream of one day getting to the point where I can run a series of, this is property, plants and equipment, and looking at it from a IFRS for SMEs, IFRS and GRAP idea, okay. The detailed GRAP sessions I'm very keen for us to work on and to offer. We haven't got them in the diary as yet, but if there is demand for it, I'm sure that SAAA would be happy for us to work on it. We are actually developing that material as we speak. Okay. So where IFRS is for private sector, GRAP is for public. Okay, so the moment we're going into the public sector, into, like I said, local government, national government, provincial governments, state-owned entities, possibly even non-profit organizations that are affiliated with governments. Whenever we are operating in this public space, we have a separate set of reporting standards. GRAP stands for Generally Recognized Accounting Practice. We are, again, in the world standards and gold standards, because you have the international standards of public reporting, the IPSAs. So you've got the IPSAs, which are the international practices for public reporting, standards for public reporting, IPSAs. Lots of acronyms, and we are a big role player in those standards, and GRAP is obviously the South African space that we take those international standards and we adapt them for our purposes. Okay, so in IFRS you have the APC, okay, the APC being the Accounting Practices Committee. I'm actually a member of the APC, so in the APC, whenever standards and exposure drafts come out from the International Accounting Standards Board, we comment on them, we look at them, we take into account South African issues and challenges around them, and then that's where SACA and other institutes release the standards for South African accountants to work with. So the APC is, and what we are getting to in the private sector is, as with the Companies Act Amendment Bill is proposing, is for the Financial Reporting Standards Council to have teeth and to work in the space. Okay. The equivalent for GRAP is the Accounting Standards Board. Their website is really good. That is where GRAP sits. Okay, so if you're wanting to Google up GRAP standards, if you're wanting to find out where the directives are sitting, where you're wanting to find out the latest amendments and updates to what is happening in this particular space in public reporting, then you go to the Accounting Standards Board website. And it is a really useful, user-friendly website to gain whatever information you're wanting. So from a financial reporting perspective with public sector, the Accounting Standards Board is the place to go.
I hope that you enjoyed that video. For more of our webinar videos, go to www.accountingacademy.co.za. Thank you and have a lovely day.